Welcome to This Explainer. Look, we need to talk about a massive and honestly almost completely overlooked blind spot in how businesses are rolling out AI right now. Because usually when a new AI system drops, 100% of the spotlight goes straight to the model itself, right? Everyone just wants to talk about how incredibly fast it is, how smart it seems, or the thousands of hours it's going to save. But the source material we're looking at today asks a far more uncomfortable question. What exactly happens when that AI gets something wrong? Or what if its output is just kind of borderline? It turns out that gap, the space between an AI's output and a business action, is rarely handled with any real rigor. Most businesses assume the AI will flag its own errors. It usually doesn't. Just think about your own operational systems for a second. Have you or your team built the AI but completely skipped designing the review logic around it? Because let's be real, when a system doesn't flag its own uncertainty, someone in the business is acting on that output anyway. So there's this really dangerous assumption happening across the board. We tend to think AI is basically self-regulating. Like we assume a little warning light will automatically blink on the dashboard if the model is unsure. But the reality is so much riskier. A highly plausible but completely incorrect output can just slip right into your daily business operations. And without a deliberate checkpoint sitting right there between the AI's output and the final action, those unchecked, unverified outputs just start driving real business decisions. All right, let's move into our first section, oversight as governance. We actually need to completely reframe how we view human oversight here. It is not just a nice-to-have safety net, it is a hard governance discipline. And it's actually fascinating to see how the major, high-level regulatory frameworks are converging on this exact gap right now. If you look at NIST in the US alongside Australia's AI adoption guidance, they both point to the exact same necessity. NIST explicitly calls for additional human review, tracking, and management oversight simply because these AI outputs can be so unpredictable. Meanwhile, Australia specifically demands that accountable people are responsible for monitoring. So this isn't just some friendly best practice we're talking about. It's a rigorous, required governance discipline. Okay, let's dive into this next part. Section 2, 3 human checkpoint failures. So how are businesses actually failing at this on the ground today? Well, it usually boils down to 3 main traps: treating human review as a rare exception, deleting checkpoints entirely in the name of quote-unquote efficiency, and having absolutely zero defined ownership over the review step itself. As we methodically walk through these 3, you might find some of them sound a little too familiar in your own operations. Let's start with the first trap. It is a critical, fundamental mistake to assume the AI is going to reliably flag its own uncertainty and perfectly route it for review. In practice, many systems just aren't built to do that at all. And even when they are, the trigger is rarely calibrated to the actual business risk of getting that specific decision wrong. Human review has got to be a core design principle from day one, not some magical feature you just assume the AI is going to handle for you. Which brings us to the second failure, and this one is absolutely crucial for operations leaders to hear. Removing a checkpoint is not an efficiency gain. It is a risk transfer. Look, the whole business case for AI almost always hinges on speed and cutting costs, right? So when human reviews are viewed as friction, they just get the axe. But we have to shift that operations mindset. When you cut oversight, the cost doesn't just magically disappear. You are literally just moving the cost from the checkpoint directly to the error itself. And in the real world, errors at scale are vastly more expensive than running a proper review process. And then we have what I like to call the ghost process step: no defined ownership. The checkpoint might exist in theory, like you look at a fancy process map and you see a nice little box labeled review, but nobody actually owns it. It's basically a ticket just floating out there in the void. There's no named individual who is accountable, there's no service level agreement dictating how fast it has to happen, and crucially, there's no escalation path for when the human reviewer themselves is sitting there thinking, I have no idea what to do with this. The harsh reality is this: if the checkpoint exists on paper but is absent in practice, that is exactly the same as not having one at all. When a nominal review step just gets ignored, your system is running totally unchecked. And what's really interesting about this is it proves that without an intentionally designed checkpoint, trusting your AI isn't a strategy anymore. It's literally just a guess. Which brings us to the structural fix. Section 3, what good looks like. So how do we actually fix this? Well, it starts by completely redefining the concept. A human checkpoint is a deliberate operating design that makes AI trustworthy, accountable, and sustainable in real business operations. We need a total reframe of human-in-the-loop oversight. It is not some catastrophic panic button for when things catch fire. It is the core functional engine for scaling your AI responsibly. It's a calm, carefully designed decision point sitting right there between the AI output and the business action. When you're building this into an actual blueprint, these checkpoints have to be designed into the workflow before the build even begins. You need to define exactly what triggers a human review. It shouldn't be random. Actually, scratch that. It can't be random. It could be a dip in the model's confidence score, it could be a highly sensitive decision category, or maybe a strict business risk threshold. But that logic has to be deliberately architected. And beyond just those triggers, you need structural elements. You need a named owner, a defined time frame, a specific format for the review, and really clear authorization limits. Meaning, what is the reviewer actually allowed to decide on their own? A well-designed checkpoint isn't a bureaucratic hurdle. It's the exact mechanism that maintains accountability. And the crucial point is, the beautiful irony here is that when you build these structures properly, they actually make your AI faster to scale because you're building reliable, documented trust over time. Moving to Section 4, the Omnisenti Design Standard. Looking at how Omnisenti approaches this as an implementation partner, they treat human-in-the-loop as a structural, non-negotiable component for every single AI rollout. The real differentiator here is the timing. Before any technical build even starts, they mandate defining those triggers, the ownership, and the escalation paths. The checkpoint is tested and trained for. It's never just assumed. It's treated as a fundamental design standard from day one, not some frantic afterthought. So this leaves us with a really provocative question to evaluate our own systems today. Are your human checkpoints deliberately designed into your workflow, or are you just guessing? If you're sitting there realizing you've built the AI but skipped the review logic entirely, it might be time to pause. The source material invites leaders to simply reply with the word checkpoints to begin a conversation about designing the structural fix for their specific workflows. To wrap up this explainer, there's one foundational takeaway I want to leave you with, and it really stands out. An AI that nobody trusts delivers nothing. Trust is designed in, not added later. Thank you so much for joining me, and take a much closer look at the spaces between your AI outputs and your business actions today.